I think a lot of the folks in this room would love to do stuff like this, or everybody in here has great ideas. But I think it's always the execution that a lot of folks get confused and really want to, would love to see the learning. So it started, on our side, it started with an idea. Ultimately, it was, John Haber, which is my boss, the US director of the Ignition Factory, calls me up. He'd been at our company a few weeks. I barely knew the guy. And he's like, can you create an ad can you shake an ad and something will happen, or it's something, and we talked a lot about what all the apps could do, but we're talking about it in an ad. And I said to myself, well, it's interesting. You couldn't do it in a browser, maybe in an application. Let me call this guy Eric I know who's working in that space, and we'll see what we can do. And I called you, and then...
It was one of those chocolate and peanut butter moments. We happen to have been building a platform where we would empower shakeable ads. It was a fairly short process for the two of us to go through the dialogue around what the execution might look like, how to deliver it, how to serve it, who the publishers might be. I think that whole process took us a matter of minutes in a phone call.
Yep. So then, this is the media agency. So this is not the creative agency or the digital agency of record is Razorfish. They're going to come into play in a minute. So far, it's still just the media agency and the technology enabler, technology provider, Medialets. Basically, talking about feasibility. We talked about creative. Again, through John, he introduced to me the idea of we want to shake the phone and have a guy dance, and maybe he's going to bounce around a bit, and wouldn't that be cool to show off the pants? As we talked about that, we brainstormed ideas. I know that we talked about feasibility, the length of video, all that stuff. We talked about all media planning issues, what sites or what publishers have your SDK, can we go after others? Maybe they don't have your technology yet, but we really like their audience, let's go get them, that sort of stuff. We hashed out some quick pricing, that was always fun, and then we made our recommendation to the client. This is what they hire us for. We are the emerging agency of record for Dockers, which sounds a little strange. Not a lot of folks are used to that term. But this shows you how innovative and frankly, how cool Dockers really is, the people behind the company. They're willing to invest not just money, but attention and contract an agency with the prominence of OMD with this very specific mission, which is we want you to be innovating for us all the time. So, you want to take it?
Sure. So I come back to the notion that I brought up initially, that this is digital media. It's mobile, there are things that are new and evolved to it, but it's very similar to the things we've all been doing in media in the past. And we liken the gap between the knowledge required to do mobile-rich media and online-rich media somewhat analogous to the gap between doing straight display and online-rich media, right? They're roughly equivalent. There's more to know, there are new tools, but if you've done one, you can probably do the other fairly successfully. So metrics behind this are things on the similar side that we all know and understand well. There's the pricing. This campaign was done on a CPM basis. There are certainly other models available. All the planning around how it is to select an app, how it is to reach through the audience, how to understand the audience, how to plan for the reporting behind it, and there was very significant reporting behind this. And then ultimately knowing what the engagements, what the key metrics of engagement were behind this. Want to talk about what's different?
Sure. Yeah. So, and this all came into that conversation with the client, right? So a lot of folks always ask us, how do you sell it through to the client? So part of it is always, well, there's some familiar and there's some new. It's a great idea and people are excited about it, but then once you get past that excitement, it's like, well, what is this going to cost? How do you measure it? I got to sell it internally. That conversation. So there's the similar, which is the comforting, and then there's the different, which is, kind of almost like the hurdle. One of them was the creative media strategy, which is new to a lot of clients, which is that the media agency, in a lot of ways, can drive creative. The creative is driven by the media rather than whatever creative agencies do. And forgive me, I'm not on that side of the business. I don't really know where their insights come from. But these new metrics, so shakes per visit. Again, it's a new metric, but it's really just sort of interactions per visit, that sort of thing. And then the conversational media goals that I went through. So, positive mentions, things like that. These are still sort of uncharted territory that a lot of clients have yet to been exposed to, but it's important to really do the work so that rather than just do all the media KPIs, and that's interesting, and the client can get their head around it. You want to take them further, right? Just as television isn't radio with pictures, mobile is not the web, without wires, right? So there are new metrics that we can bring to bear, and all it takes is a creative mind and a PowerPoint deck, and you can bring these to your clients and your stakeholders as well. That's you.
Okay, so around the creative execution, the first draft of this was Jamie, myself, John Haber, and a few other folks from my team on an email thread talking about what could be accomplished. The platform was still new. We hadn't launched a shakeable ad or an interactive ad at that point. So there was, the good thing about that was there was an awful lot of room for us to get really flexible in how it was we wanted to execute this. Early ideas had an entirely different execution of the exact same ad, but fundamentally, it ultimately came together where OMD provided coordination, they provided project management, they did a lot of the thinking around how it is ultimately to engage consumers in a way that's appropriate for the brand. We spent a bunch of time making sure that the application technology made it out to the vendors, to the publishers behind this, making sure that the reporting was what we all needed. We went through several iterations of reporting, even post-launch of the campaign, as we learned more about the data, as we learned what was really interesting to measure. We had ideas early on, but it's a fluid model. It was the first of a kind. Razorfish found Dufon. They brought him in. They did the shooting around this. They sent Medialits creative assets. They sent us video. We then took the video, our creative team sliced it up, put it into the right format for this. The nice thing about these ads and this platform is that they're all built using standard technology. They're built using web technologies plus a little bit extra that's unique to our platform and that's unique to the iPhone space. So the execution from a build perspective, particularly in construction, putting aside the cost of shooting video, is actually fairly inexpensive to very inexpensive because either a team like ours can do it quickly or creative individuals, web developers, folks that you probably already know and work with can do it, can put this all together using mechanisms that they already know and understand very well. Obviously, Dockers was very involved in the process, providing leadership and guidance, making sure that what we were delivering was on message with where they wanted to be, and there was just a good communications flow throughout the process. There were 4 very strong parties involved in this, all of whom had a very key set of desires to get this out as quickly as possible, to make it as successful as it could be, and I think we all ended up exceptionally happy with the results. Anything you want to add?
I think that was perfect.
Okay, great.
So the final word on this, really just, there is no final word, but this is just how you close a presentation, right? So we know that rich media is a high performer online, and we made a leap of faith and said it's going to be a high performer in mobile, and so far it's been great. And what we like to say is here it's a winner for everybody because it addresses all these challenges, right? For publishers, the big challenge is how do I make money on this? Banners, yeah, I can package them in with my online buys. I can do a lot of stuff, but I want something better. I want something that's going to command a higher CPM. I want something that's going to drive demand. As we know that there's a little probably more supply right now than demand on the mobile, on the banner side, on the display side, and that's not just coming from a buyer. I think a lot of folks could agree with that. The agency side, the big one is how do we measure the effectiveness? It's hard for us as a media agency. We are the stewards of this giant pool of money, and our job is to spend it wisely. And we do that through metrics. So it's one thing to say we can measure how many times this ad's been seen by someone. We can measure a click-through. The challenge there is we finally taught, most people are now understand that click-throughs for the most part aren't that valuable. It's really an action past the click, and that gets a lot more challenging in mobile. It can still be done, but it takes a lot of work, and work means money. And if it's an emerging channel, there may not be enough budget or enough manpower to get all that done. So these are all challenges. So again, this sort of addresses that challenge. And then finally, on the brand side, the big one is show me something cool. Like I thought, is mobile really just banners? Is it really just text? I mean, we've been seeing that for years. What's the newest, coolest stuff? We want to be innovating. We want to be closer to this. We want to be closer to our consumers and closer to that action. So for OMD and myself personally, we really feel that that mobile-rich media really meets all these challenges, and it is one of those. It is that thing that we've been looking for in terms of mobile, in terms of monetization, in terms of making it more interesting to brands, et cetera. And this case study, this is a proof of concept. This really just scratched the surface. Anything, we talk about this all the time, anything you can do with that SDK, whether it's location-based, I don't want to have to click to find the nearest Hertz. Just show me where it is right in that ad unit, right? You can do that with, with this technology. And the list goes on and on and on. And we can talk about that all day. That's what we do many a night. So, we're kind of bullish on it. Obviously, Eric's built a company on it. He's pretty happy with it.